Hello everyone, I'm Dan the Cineman and welcome back to my channel. Now, I know what you're all thinking, a television series review? You're Dan the Cineman, not Dan the Television Man. Let me explain. So, last night, which would have been the 10th of February, I was supposed to go to an early screening of a new film called Waste Man, starring David Johnson, that my sister Sophie did a bit of work for on the trailer. Obviously, because my sister worked on it, I thought it would be nice if I went with my dad to this early screening. With the idea in mind that, I watched the film last night, I record my review tonight on the 11th, and then the video is out with you guys at the weekend. However, with the screening being an early screening, it was exclusive to Odeon Extras Plus members, meaning that I could only buy one ticket for me and not two tickets. So obviously I couldn't go with Dad, and therefore we just decided to go and see it when it releases worldwide, which is the 20th of February, so do look out for a review on that. But for now, I thought I'd sort of fill the gap almost with a review of this fantastic TV show that I watched recently called The Studio. Now, it's not too out of left field because, like I said, this channel is Dan the Cineman. This show is all about the creation of cinema and the production of movies. It released last year, 2025, on Apple TV, and it stars Seth Rogen, amongst others, with one notable name being the late Catherine O'Hara. Just a quick summary of the plot. It's about Seth Rogen's character, Matt Remick, who is made head of a production company called Continental Studios, and it's basically about how he wants to use his job to create meaningful movies whilst also being bogged down by the commercial requirement of making, high budget, high grossing movies at the box office. Now, those of you who are familiar with my channel will note that the title just says spoiler free, whereas I normally do spoiler free and spoiler full reviews. This is because this show is a comedy. I don't really feel like I need to go into specifics to sort of get across my feelings on the show, my thoughts, and how good I think it is. Spoiler alert, I think it's very good. I don't really feel the need to, at the same time, there isn't really much to spoil. So yeah, it's just going to be spoiler free. I won't go into specifics. So if you haven't watched the show, please feel comfortable that you can watch this whole video. I'm going to schedule this video to upload on Sunday, as that's when my first video uploaded and that seemed to reach the biggest audience. Please do let me know in the comments or just message me on any of the platforms that you follow me on if you have any ideas in terms of when you think, when you feel you're most active on YouTube. I want to reach the wider audience and sort of start the dialogue about cinema and television here. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, please. I'll go back to Sunday for now and we'll see how we go. And yeah, with all that being said, let's jump into my completely spoiler-free thoughts on Apple TV's 2025 release, The Studio. Just my quick usual disclaimer, I'm going to show some images throughout this video. I will try to find images that are in the public domain and so are free to use, but where this is not possible, I will give credit where credit is due in the bottom corner. Okay, yes, The Studio. I thought it was brilliant. I was wanting to watch it for a while, but I didn't have an Apple TV subscription. Luckily, my girlfriend Phoebe got a new iPhone, and so with that, got a 3-month free trial for the platform. I don't know why we didn't continue with our subscription because we watched Severance season 1, which was amazing, and season 2 came out and we never bothered for some reason. I still really want to watch that. But yeah, I just thought I'd give The Studio a go since everyone wanted to watch it with the free trial. And yeah, boy, I'm glad I did it. Fantastic show, so funny. And yeah, let's dive into it in a bit more detail. The show itself, for me, just screams quality. It looks unbelievably good. It looks so good. The way it's shot, if you know me, again, I've touched on it in my previous videos, I love a long take, a oneer, and pretty much every episode is made up of multiple shorter oneers. It just makes you so immersed in, this culture of Hollywood production, and yeah, really worked for me. And for me, it just screams high quality. This is the 4th or 5th Apple TV project that I've watched now. I believe I've watched Severance, Killers of the Flower Moon, I watched Highest to Lowest, and now I've watched the studio. So yeah, the fourth project I've watched, and yeah, they all sort of give almost gleaming, just scream high quality, and this is definitely the same. It's funny because one of its episodes is based around the Golden Globes, and the show itself went on to do really well at the Golden Globes. It won Best Television Series, Musical or Comedy. Seth Rogen got Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy, and the late Catherine O'Hara got Best Supporting Actress in a Musical or Comedy. Just to pay respects to the late Catherine O'Hara, I believe the news broke last week as of recording this about her untimely passing. And yeah, massive, massive shame. Such a loss for the whole world. Obviously, particularly the world of cinema and television, but in terms of her personal life, from the amount of testaments that have come out from celebrities, it seems she touched many people's lives on a personal level, as well as the professionalism that she brought to every role that she did. You know, I was mainly exposed to her brilliance through Schitt's Creek. My sister Sophie loves it and recommended me to watch it. My girlfriend Phoebe had already seen it, but she watched it again with me. We've nearly finished it. We've literally got a few episodes left. Her Moira is so funny. Probably the highlight of the show. Yeah, brilliant show, and her sort of light and joy that she brings to it. It's evident to see, and massive loss, massive shame, and yeah, rest in peace. I do think my favourite part of the show is the main cluster of characters, and that's made up of Seth Rogen's Matt Remick. You've got Chase Suey Wonders, who plays Quinn, Ike Barinholtz, who plays Sal Saperstein, Catherine Hahn, who plays the marketing lead. I forgot her character's name. Maya, there we go. I miraculously remembered it, or maybe I checked the internet, who knows. And then, yeah, Catherine O'Hara's Patty. The relationships they all have, they all bounce off each other. Obviously, in the show, they're part of the same team, they're all part of the studio. So it's great to see them sometimes working together, sometimes plotting against each other, as you'll see if you watch the show. And yeah, they all have such great chemistry. The moments that they share the screen are, yeah, some of the highlights of the whole show. The show, obviously, with the premise being set in Hollywood and the production of films, the making of cinema, it is a celebration of cinema, and it's quite satisfying to watch if you are a cinephile. It's also interesting because they dive they get technical about, obviously we're watching these people who are working in the industry, so they get technical about different areas of producing films and just everything around pre and post production. So yeah, really interesting to sort of get that insight into how movies are made. And also there is celebrity cameos, there's actor cameos, there's director cameos. I won't spoil them, but they're from the first episode onwards, and these actors and directors play themselves, and it feels really natural because, again, it's about a production studio creating films. So why wouldn't actual directors and actors be involved? So yeah, that's quite satisfying because there's a very good chance that you're going to see one of your favorite directors or one of your favorite actors, and yeah, and there's also the side of it where it goes into the technical production, and if you know a little bit, you can say, "Oh, I knew that," or if you find something out, it's really interesting and yeah, really satisfying to watch if you're a fan of cinema, as I assume you are if you're here listening to this video. I touched on it previously, but they do an episode where the characters are at the Golden Globes, and it's so. I think that's the funniest episode. It's so good, and yeah, the whole show is very self-aware. Whilst it does show the sort of positives of the studio exec lifestyle, their jobs, it's also self-aware and makes sort of self-deprecating jokes about Hollywood and about the big studio suits and stuff like that. And yeah, the Golden Globes episode is just brilliant. It shows interactions between actors and studio execs and directors that you wouldn't really think about unless you're exposed to them. I've got a good friend, Lucy, who's a production runner for a company called Transmission, and she does a lot of work for the Omaze shoots. Those giveaways of the massive houses. She works on shooting those, and yeah, it's just crazy to me, this whole production side of cinema. As a consumer, I watch the film I never really think about the logistical side of it, budgets and stuff like that. Yeah, so this was a really interesting sort of exploration of that, whilst also being self-aware. Like I said, it's not Hollywood tooting its own horn. I mean, it was written and directed by Seth Rogen, who's obviously been around the block, which makes it that much more realistic, and yeah, just a joy to watch. I won't go into specifics too much, but there's an episode of this show that's all about casting and racism. The main cast of characters get way over their heads and are worried that the casting they've initially planned for this movie is racist, and it's basically all about it sort of grapples with that problem head on, and it's a really, really good sort of exploration of the problem. For me, I think it's one of the best I've seen in terms of realism, but also making it funny. They cast the original cast, and then one of them thinks that's problematic, but then the way they fix it is actually the problematic part. And yeah, it's very sort of an intergenerational look at how, the different generations view racism, how they think they're being racist, and what they do. They sort of panic when they think they're being racist, even though they're actually not. And yeah, this was brilliant. And that episode was, yeah, one of the best sort of representations of the problem of racism, especially definitely in Hollywood, that I've seen so far. Episode 2 for me is the peak of what this show is trying to do in terms of representing the creation of cinema and actually being cinema. It's called The Wanna, and the episode is about how Seth Rogen's character wants to be on set while the director of this movie creates this Wanna closing shot for her film, and the actual episode is shot as a Wanna. The entire 23-minute episode is shot as a Wanna, and it was just jaw dropping. It was, yeah, like I said, that overlap between showcasing the creation of cinema and actually being a cinematic, masterpiece. Like I said earlier, most of the episodes, if not, I think all of the episodes actually are made up of multiple oneers. I think 5 or 6 oneers. That's just how they intended to shoot it. Like I said, it works really well for me. I love those shots. It, yeah, makes you feel immersed, but also overwhelmed at the same time. The overwhelming aspects of Hollywood, the busy sets, the glamorous Golden Globe Awards, stuff like that. I said earlier it's almost a satisfying watch if you're a cinema nerd like I am, and that comes to light here because Seth Rogen is, the studio head of this massive production company, and he is a nerd for Warner's just like I am. So, that was great to see. It almost makes you feel, represented because you love these specific aspects of cinema, and so does the studio head of this fictional massive production company. It's funny, and also kind of justifies me making this video on a television series, because as much as I love these Warner shots in films, the first time I actually saw it and appreciated one was in True Detective. I'll try and find a video of it and link it in the description. But yeah, it's a 6-minute shot in episode 4 of season 1 of True Detective, and we follow Matthew McConaughey's character Rust Cole through these projects in America. And yeah, the camera doesn't cut once. This was when I was first exposed to this technique, and yeah, it's been used multiple times to great effect. Again, it's this crossover, like I said, because Seth Rogen's character actually mentions, Goodfellas, that classic tracking shot following Ray Liotta's character. He mentions Children of Men, which is one of my favorite films of all time. This is what I mean by, the satisfying element of watching this show if you are a cinephile. Now, this is actually a bit of a spoiler, but I'm going to put it in here as low-key as a bit of a trigger warning. There's a point in an episode, I think it's episode 6 or 7, it's where Seth Rogen goes to a charity dinner with doctors. Basically, he snaps his finger, and I can't tell you how much the image sits with me. I don't know if it was CGI or a prosthetic or what, but he's literally, Seth Rogen has, I think it's his pinky finger, and it's snapped off to the side. And I'm not squeamish, but it made me feel a certain way. So if you are, when you're watching the episode with the doctors at that charity ball, just be wary, because yeah, it went through me. Ugh. To wrap up my spoiler-free thoughts on the studio, yeah, really, really good first season. I'm really excited to watch the next one. The way I've been talking about this, it's like it's an entire show, not just one season, which I actually forget because of the high quality. Yeah, really excited to see what they do in the next season. There's so much they can do with it, and I trust Seth Rogen. I'm a big fan of his. I've seen a lot of his projects now. This is probably my favorite of his, to be fair, as much as I love, Pineapple Express, This Is the End, The Interview, stuff like that. This might just take the cake because it's got his stamp of comedy, but also it's just high quality, like I said. And it's that celebration of cinema that makes it a satisfying watch if you are into cinema, but also it's an accessible watch if you aren't. You might see some cameos and it might get you into cinema a bit more if you've fallen out of love with it, or if you're more of a television person than you are a cinema person. This ticks a lot of boxes, and yeah, brilliant watch for me. I would definitely recommend it. Whilst I would say that this is enough to justify getting Apple TV on its own, even if it's just for a month to get through, there is a lot of good stuff on Apple TV now that makes me almost think that it's a mainstay subscription, and it could hang its hat alongside Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. It's got Severance, Ted Lasso, The Studio, and then films like Killers of the Flower Moon, mainly series to be fair, but yeah, a few films coming through. And in terms of in the pipeline, it's just secured the rights for the Cosmere, which is probably my favorite book series of all time. It's got movie rights for the Mistborn trilogy, which is part of the Cosmere, and then TV rights for the Stormlight Archive, which is the sort of wider scope series inside the Cosmere. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. But yeah, moving from Brandon Sanderson back to Seth Rogen, the studio, very, very good. Definitely worth your time. I would recommend it for sure. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this little bumper episode. My next video should be on Wuthering Heights. I'm hoping to go and see that when it releases this weekend with my girlfriend Phoebe. So that should be my next video. But yeah, for now, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. I'm Dan the Cineman, despite the fact that I talked about television here. And yeah, thanks for listening. See you at the movies. Or in front of your television now, apparently.